Come on, let's go. What got there? Ooh.
Let's get busy.
Welcome back to Squared Away Garage. Looky what I have here. It's been a little bit of a battle, but I've got a replacement cam for the one that was delaminating. Many of you are probably wondering exactly what was the deal with that. And if you saw in my previous video, we did do a hardness test on that cam. And I was pretty sure that it was soft, although we were questioning whether or not we were getting a good read with the tester. As it turns out, though, Crower agreed. It was a Crower cam. They agreed, and they were willing to warranty the cam. But there was a hitch. They didn't have any cams in stock, and they didn't have any cores in stock, and they had no idea when they were going to get new cores to even be able to run cams again. So the best that they could do was refund my money on it. But I wasn't the customer. My engine builder was the customer. So they wouldn't refund me the money, they refunded it to him. And he did not want to warranty this. He even sent me an email that said, this is not a warranty. And so I ended up paying him the difference in the cost, his cost on the cam from when I originally got the engine built until now, plus shipping. Plus, I'm pretty sure he marked it up 20 bucks to put in his pocket. So I'm pretty impressed with that. And anyway, I've got a cam. So I'm going to put a gear on it here right after I get done shooting this video, and I'm going to get it installed, and I will have a short block assembled. I do want to tell you guys a little bit about this cam and kind of what I'm up to. So, as everybody realizes right now, with the time of the shooting of this video here, cams are kind of hard to come by. Same thing, you know, Crower said, they can't get cores from whoever casts the cores, makes the cores. So, getting a replacement is difficult. And my engine builder didn't have the same exact cam that I pulled out of this engine to send me. That was a stage 2 hydraulic roller cam, and he had exactly one stage 3 hydraulic roller cam and a couple of stage 1s. His estimated time of arrival for new cams was 6 to 8 weeks. And I deal with supply chain stuff that's going on day to day at work also. And even though he was given a lead time of 6 to 8 weeks, man, I just didn't really know if that was a solid number. And he only had one stage 3 cam, which is a little bit of a step up, but I knew I didn't want to go down to a stage 1. So I decided to pull the trigger on the stage 3 and step up to the stage 3 so that I had something in hand, definite, and I could start planning around it. So here we go, stage 3 cam. So it's a little bit of an upgrade for Hussey, but as you're going to see here coming up in the video, I'm working on some modifications to the head. I have been adamant up until now that it wasn't necessary to divide the head, the ports, the intake ports in the head, with the multi-port fuel injection. And I'm still adamant that it's not necessary. You don't have to. The multi-port fuel injection with a good ECU, Hussey turned out really nice and ran well. Obviously, you know, there's a video if you guys don't believe me. And I was happy with it. But being the person that I am, I gotta tinker. I gotta see if I can improve things a little bit. And I got caught up in trying to get the spark plugs, you know, to look even. And, you know, I kind of figured it out. I was working with a feature in the ECU called injector phasing, and had the truck back on the dyno in October and proved that the injector phasing was something that needed to be explored. Unfortunately, that day it was kind of the blind leading the blind. The tuner doesn't mess with that feature. It's not necessary on a lot of things. He'd never really messed with that feature and didn't really know what to do with it. I understood what it was supposed to do. I had all the preliminary information input into my ECU and had a graph for the ECU made that needed to be activated. What I didn't know is, you know, what adjustments needed to be made to that graph. Well, he activated it and we did some pulls and we moved some things around and we did see some improvements on the power in the engine. But we didn't get very far with it because we really didn't. Neither one of us knew for sure what to do from there. I was a little disappointed he didn't know a little more about that feature, but it is what it is. I did prove that does make a difference. So jump a little ways ahead. I ended up talking to a guy in Nebraska who is he's a tuner and he's apparently well known. He does most of what he does now is teaching other tuners, I think. And I talked to him about the injector phasing. Does he know what it is? And he said, oh yeah, he knew exactly what it was and how to use it. And I told him about my project and he said, okay, I've actually done that before. So somebody out there has done something like this with the multi-port fuel injection on one of these engines. I'm going to assume it's probably someone in a race application. I don't know. And he kind of broke it to me. He said it's going to make a difference for your engine, but he says it's not going to be 100% what you want. So that kind of sucked. You know, he said, you know, without it on, you could probably tune that engine to 85% of what it's capable of. Turn it on and you may get another 10% out of it. But he said it's that last 5% you're never going to get with those Siamese port heads. Which is good to know, but it also was a little bit disappointing. So on the dyno in October, Hussey suffered a little damage. I think it was probably heat soak. That's what we're going to roll with at this point. because there was no smoking gun. There's nothing that I can point at in that engine and say this is definitely the problem. And what ended up happening is I ended up with a warped head. Ended up being out 7 thousandths. So the engine had to come apart. And when the engine came apart, that's when I found the cam was delaminating. So that was a blessing, because the cam, there wasn't a lot of material in the engine yet. I didn't find any evidence that anything heavy had gone through any of the bearings and anything. I couldn't find any evidence that it had gotten into the oil pump. I did find some small particles in the bottom of the pan, and a few particles in the oil filter, some real fine glitter in the oil filter. So everything got caught early, and it was because of the problems created on the dyno. So everything's kind of coming together here, and engine's got to come apart now. The cam's bad, I got to get a different cam. I've talked to this guy about fine tuning with the injector phasing. He's agreed that it's going to make a big difference, but it's not going to get the engine to 100%. So the engine's apart, and I decided the thing that I've been the most stubborn about up to this point, I decided to go ahead and divide the intake ports on the engine. So what you're going to see coming up here in the video is some of that process, and part of the decision for the stage 3 cam upgrade, part of the decision was being able to get this in hand right now and not have to worry about potentially waiting for a cam to come that's not coming anytime soon. But the other part of going ahead and deciding this was, when I divide those intake ports, I'm going to restrict airflow to the individual valves a little bit. So we're going to reduce our air volume, but we're going to increase velocity. So there's some trade-offs there. But to make up for some of the volume, the stage 3 cam seemed like a good idea. I'm going to get a little more lift on the intake, and I'm going to get a little more duration. No big changes. I spoke to Crowder about this cam at length with a tech. We were looking at the specs on the stage 2 and the stage 3 cam and discussing it. And I've already got a 2000 stall converter in Hussey, so this needs just a little bit more stall, about 200 more RPM according to Crowder. Engine builder says 300. But everything looked like it was going to work with this cam, maybe just a little bit better. So that's what I'm doing. This nice, beautiful chunk of highly polished steel, hopefully hardened correctly this time, is getting ready to go in Hussey's heart and soul here. And hopefully it works out for the best. And you guys will see coming up here the additional modifications to the head. Hope you enjoy the video.
Feel the rhythm beating to this heart of mine, screaming freedom. Careful not to cross the line. Can you keep up? Run away to stay ahead. They just want us to keep it low and turn our heads. All broken, never have the time. So we spend love watching stars go by. They all said it would go away. Setting fire that will never stay.
So my cam's in, and I decided to give the whole rotating assembly a once over here before I decided everything was good to go. And I think I might have found some damage from the over rev. Hope this shows up on the camera, but look right here. See how I got light below the straight edge to the top of the piston right there? Now look over here. There's the piston, but looky here, right there. There's light underneath the straight edge. I think we got a bent rod. All right. The poor man's way to kind of confirm what I think here, that I got a bent rod. So I've already taken this piston out and I've turned it 180 degrees, so it's in backwards. See that gap right there? Now look at this side, how the piston is all the way over against the cylinder wall. So when it's in correctly, that reverses. The piston's up against the cylinder wall on this side, and I got a big gap over here. So I think that pretty well confirms what I got going on here. Okay, so what's the theory here about probably what happened? I doubt this is specifically from being over revved. I really don't think that that would bend a rod. And I know that even though this engine met 6,200 RPM or 6,100, 6,200 right in there, that's really not high revving for the straight sixes and these straight sixes in general. Guys are running them well above that. It's too much for this engine. It's not, this engine's not set up to be run that high, but and the guys that are revving them really high probably are using a better rod, an aftermarket rod, but I still don't think that that's probably what caused this. Most likely, the head gasket was leaking. May have had a hydrolock situation of some sort, and may have done that damage then. It's hard to say for sure. So I actually noticed that the piston skirts had a little more wear on them on that cylinder, or not wear. They had a few more scuff marks on them from just touching the cylinder wall than the other 5 cylinders. But when I noticed that, I already had the piston out of the bore, obviously, and I didn't put it back in. And I probably should have made a note to check that, but I didn't. When I took all the pistons out, they all got set aside, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as I was pulling them out, so I knew exactly where they went. The rings never got removed off of them or nothing. They just got set in an ultrasonic cleaner and got cleaned up. So there wasn't really anything that I was, aside from I should have been paying attention to that, there wasn't anything really that I thought I needed to do to those. The intention was just to clean them and have them ready to go, leave all the rings and everything exactly where they were on the same pistons, and be able to just put them right back in to the block without, you know, having to worry. They were seated, they should be fine in there, no worries, right? But I should have paid attention to this sooner. What I did, when I did finally see it, I had installed the cam just in the previous part of the video, but the engine had been upside down waiting for that cam. And when I flipped it over and I was kind of checking things, moving the engine over manually and just looking at things, that's when I noticed the tip in the piston. The front part of the piston was sticking up out of the bore, while the back part of the piston was down below the bore. So glad I went back through and did some secondary checks and everything, and just gave everything a good look over, because that's that wouldn't have been very good. So probably what's going to happen next is I'm going to send this piston and rod back to the engine builder, and he will match the weight on the rod, because this was a balanced assembly, and put a new rod in the piston and send it back to me, and we'll call her good.
Feel the rhythm beating to this heart of mine, screaming freedom. Careful not to cross the line. Can you keep up? Run away to stay ahead. They just want us to keep it low and turn our heads. All broken, never have the time. So we spent love watching stars go by. They all said it would go away. Setting fire that will never stay. You and I will never die. Let's show the world that we're alive. You can see us from the youth within our eyes, running secrets from the heads that breathe the light. We don't want you to live on surprise, 'cause we're just happy living, never knowing why. Falling broken, never have the time. So we spent love watching stars go by. Always said it would go away. Setting fire that will never stay. You and I will never die. Let's show the world that we're alive. Let's show the world that we're alive.
Piston with the new rod installed. Isn't it amazing how well things fit when it's all straight and not bent? Good to go.